To go. Run him. Stay on. Got him, boys. Angela, that's a sack on the ball. Good job.
Take me back into another time when we were still in love, a different life. It's a different life.
Welcome, folks, to the Brothers Blitz podcast. That's right. That is right. We will get at least 2 sacks on you today because you move like Jared Goff. That's right. That's why
you're Lamar Jackson and you hang on to the ball way too long and you get sacked.
Or that. So it'll either be your lack of mobility or your bad decision making. But either way, we are coming in. So, folks, thanks so much for joining in. Just wrapped up the championship weekend. It is we're recording this on a Tuesday morning, early for me on the West Coast at 8:40 a.m. I'm mad about it. So this
Sorry,
is
that might
angry.
top right away.
It's an angry podcast today, but thank you all so much. Of course, I'm Jordan, and that's Fox here, and we're gonna run through our reactions on this game, on both games, our thoughts, our feelings. We had a lot of feelings, I'm sure.
I had 911 ready to go in case I had a heart attack for the 49ers game.
That's good. We try to be very, very prepared.
Trying to be practical.
Very prepared. So we're gonna go ahead and run through this stuff and just talk about the games, I think, because we can wait till next week to talk about the actual matchup for the Super Bowl since it's a 2-week thing here. So I think we can just sort of give our reactions, talk about these games a little bit, what we thought was going on, So let's go ahead and start with the one that neither one of us would worry as much about, a cardiac arrest. And let's talk about the Ravens and the Chiefs. And, I was this close to picking the Chiefs last week, too, because, I had that head. I was like,
I know. It was like, it's still Mahomes, though.
Yeah,
and I thought of that. I thought of that the entire game. I was like, how does he keep doing this all the time?
I should have just done it. There was just those feelings, you get these feelings and you're like, like, why do I feel like Mahomes will somehow come through, even though they didn't even score a point in the second half?
No, their offense.
Of course, there was only one field goal the entire second half anyway, but like,
yeah.
I
mean, the Ravens just kept shooting themselves in the foot, and like I mentioned in our little intro, like Lamar, man, just kept hanging on to the ball, and it was so weird.
Yeah,
because like you could see it because he was running out of the pocket and everything so much. You could just see these gigantic lanes where he had room to run.
Yeah,
and for me, it was just like, what happened? What is happening to you in the playoffs? Like, if it's the regular season, you're taking those lanes all freaking day, and you're just going to carve up that defense on the ground. And he was hesitant.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of it's so tough. So this is so interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot now that we've had 2 days away from it. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, I texted it to you during the game and I was just like, where I felt like Lamar needed to Kaepernick,
Yeah, you did. You did.
No, he doesn't have to do what he did against the Packers at 181 yards,
right.
Setting thing that Kaepernick did. But it's just like, it just felt like it's like what it felt like. And now, of course, I don't know what their game plan was. I don't know this stuff, but it felt like he's like, I have to prove I can do this throwing the ball.
That's exactly what it felt like to me too.
Yeah, and it's like, no, you don't. You just got to win. Right. Just win the game is what you have to do. Like regular season, you can set out and just try and prove some points and stuff, and I think that's okay. But like when it's the playoffs, you just go and win it. And then who cares what people say beyond that? Because you go, well, who cares? I went to the Super Bowl.
Right.
You know.
I mean, I even remember that with that first 49ers run with Jimmy G when they made fun of them for not throwing the ball in the championship game. Like, why would he? We ran 300 yards. Like, why would we put the ball in the air when we don't have to? That doesn't make any sense.
I know that was like single digit throwing. I think he did.
Yeah,
in that
like
game.
he was like 6 of 8 for like 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. You know, and it was like, what? Why? Yeah, it's like,
Right.
It's like, oh, does he not trust Jimmy and stuff? It's like, even if he doesn't, it's just like that's not a. That was just this just keeps working. How
Right.
we don't know, like, how have they not stopped this yet? You know, and it just keeps working. And like, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, with that Lamar stuff too, like it really did felt like they were, and maybe it was him personally, like I have to prove, I have to throw, because some of those throws he made were also horrendous. That triple coverage interception, what the hell was that?
Yeah, that was
where you're trying to go with that
was
one.
a bad
and his accuracy was just off. It was like he was forcing it so much, when he didn't have to.
Which is why he had no business making that throw. It's like, Lamar, you haven't done anything like this all game. You're just not hitting, you know. I mean, obviously his touchdown throw was a crazy.
That was a great throw.
And that whole play, just because he was
running around,
and I maybe that too, maybe that adjusted. Maybe he thought like, oh man, I'll just be able to keep doing this because that was their first drive or second drive. But it was their response to the Chiefs, so maybe he just thought, oh, and like he just never adjusted to go like, no man, it's not working. That it did that one time, and but it's so crazy because it's just like they handed the ball off to running backs 8 times.
8 times.
Say it's 16.
Wild.
They had 16 rushes total. So the other 8 were Lamar, meaning some of those are scrambles. There were a couple of planned runs.
So, the fourth down run was a designed run.
Yeah. But you're like this, and it's like it's not like the game was ever away from them.
No. That was the crazy part too. Was like, again, like Lamar's body language, it felt like he felt like, it looked like he felt like he was down by like 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you're down by a touchdown at one point. And then even you were down by multiple scores, but you're only down by 10.
Yeah.
It's only the second quarter. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, calm down here.
But this is also why it's like, call some more run plays. Like, get things going. Like, it's not like the run plays were getting completely stuffed. And it's like, and I thought about this because they were, because it's like, people may mention like, oh, what about, like, but they kept stacking the box. They were selling out for the run. And there is a little bit of this, where, Shanahan talks about this, like when this will happen sometimes on the Niners end. And he's just like, okay, he's like, I'm not gonna, we're gonna dictate what we want to do. We're not gonna let the defense change us out of our game plan. We just got to figure out basically how to beat the heavy box, and I think they needed a little bit of that. It's like they've been kind of bullies most of the year, the Ravens, and it's like, as soon as somebody like challenged them, they were like, oh well, I guess we'll pull back a little bit. It's like, no, just go. But we are a running team. We are good at it. And it's not like they didn't have some success. They just weren't doing it.
Like Gus Edwards only had 3 carries, but he gained 20 yards. Like, dude, he was averaging almost 7 yards a carry. Like, what do you? It was working.
And you could see Lamar, and obviously Lamar was off, and that happens sometimes. So it's just like this. That's not even like I'm not mad. I'm not like one of those people like, oh, Lamar's obviously stinks. He obviously doesn't know what he's doing. But he obviously was off. And this is actually, we said this, when we talked last week, this was the thing. I'm like, the reason why I went with the Ravens is because I even remember us talking about this is like, we know the Chiefs aren't necessarily great against the run. Right. Now there is some argument that maybe they just didn't care. And I think there's some of that with the Niners too, when people were talking about them not being great against the run. It's like, well, I think sometimes they just didn't care. It's like, okay, you can run. Okay. It's just sure. As long as you're not like super duper passing against us, it's fine. So
and that was, especially with like the Niners, like, yeah, cool. Run the ball. We're up by 17 points late in the third. Burn all that clock. Cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. And but so that was a possibility. But it was like, but they have good. It's like my brain's gonna come here. There we go. So the Ravens, I had to take a moment. The Ravens, we know, like, yes, they improved their receiving core, but we know their receiving core is still not great. Zay
Right,
Flowers.
right.
I mean, we'll talk about him, I'm sure, here in a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Has been a great rookie, but still, you're talking about a rookie. Isaiah Likely really came along, and they started giving him some attention more, and I think they should have maybe tried to get him the ball a little bit more earlier on in the game if they were going to throw it.
Yeah.
Odell, was non-existent until
I
like
was gonna
one
say he was a
drive.
non-factor pretty much all
There,
season.
Bateman, but it's like, but because we knew that the Chiefs could cover people. I mean, that was
Right.
their defense is built more on that, so it just made sense to go with your strength, because your strength is what looks like the other team's biggest
Glaring weakness. Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
it's not like a porous, it's just like, but if I'm going to attack something of the Chiefs, I'm going to attack the run more than I'm going to attack the pass, because they have
Right.
really good corners, really good defenses.
And
They disguise blitzes. They'll be creative, but just running the ball, you get them on their heels a little bit. Hopefully, you can push them back. You can do all this stuff,
right.
and control the game.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because like there were a lot of things that I thought of after the fact, and like first off, the Bills ran all over them. I don't know why like John Harbaugh didn't factor that in.
Yeah.
And then like going back to Lamar being off, like shouldn't that be even more of a reason you try to stick with the run a little bit more, because you can even see that your quarterback's pushing it a little bit, like maybe get more into the game, like get the run game going, get him relaxed and settled a little bit, then maybe try to throw the ball a little bit more if you have to. It didn't make sense that they abandoned it when Lamar's accuracy was clearly off.
Yeah, this was there was a lot of coaching things, and it's interesting because you say Harbaugh, and I'm sure some people would be like, "Well, yeah, but Todd Monken's the offensive coordinator,
right?
But Harbaugh can dictate things. He can go, we gotta run it. He can tell the coach, pick some run plays. We are done. Like, we got to figure this out. I mean, it was a 17-10 game total. I mean, at the end, but even still, like, you were down 17-7 for most of the game. It's not like it was like that. It's 2 scores,
Right. It was never out of reach.
The entire second half until you finally got a field goal was a 2-score game, and that's
right.
And that's it, and it was a touchdown and a field goal. It wasn't even 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So I'm just
you have like the best kicker on the planet. So like you really need a touchdown, and then to get into like, I know it was cold that day, but like you still, Justin Tucker, you get in within 55 yards, he's most likely going to make that kick.
Yeah, it wasn't cold enough to where, though it was getting rainy and stuff. So it could be maybe Lamar, maybe he just can't handle the rain. You just got to figure out how to play in the rain.
Right. Because every quarterback's always spectacular in the rain.
Yeah, because like in that way too, what sucks is like Lamar gets such crap for things.
I know, and that's partially why I was rooting for him. I was like, good God, I'm so sick of people talking all this crap about you.
Yeah, I mean, now I will say this year's MVP campaign is sort of like a nobody really was like crazy good. I mean, if it were me, I would probably give it to McCaffrey because he at least had over 2,000 scrimmage yards and his
like
TDs,
24 touchdowns or something like that.
Like he was clearly like making things go, but
there's
a little bit
when they put up Lamar's numbers at the beginning of the game, I even though I was alone in my apartment, I literally shouted out, like, not shouted, but I said out loud, that guy's the MVP over McCaffrey right now.
Yeah. And it's just like, McCaffrey, you saw, I mean, we'll get to that game later, but like, I mean, he
was a monster.
Yeah, even against what was one of the best, they were first, I think, in rush defense.
We'll talk about that. I want to,
but
I want to talk about Zay Flowers real quick.
Let's get to the Zay Flowers.
Good Lord, like he made some great plays, but also what a dum-dum. First off, like the taunting penalty after that great catch, I was like, dude, you idiot.
That was that play was like three penalties in one go. Because he pushes him, then he spins the ball right at him, and then he stands over him.
Over him.
It's like, it's a good thing those things don't stack,
That would literally have negated the entire 50-yard pass.
Yeah,
It would have been
50-yard pass, 45 yards back.
penalties, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's so that already was like so many things. And it's
I
like,
get it, like, that's where that rookie part comes in, like, and I get it, it had been a frustrating day so far. You finally break open again, and you just kind of lose your head a little bit, and then seemed like he was going to redeem himself, and then again, like, they were playing so desperate, they were about to go down and tie the game, and he just when he sticks the ball out for everybody to have it to try to get to the goal line, I was even when he started diving, I just started going, like, oh no, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
It's like, dude, you had like what was there still like 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of time left, and like you have 4 tries, and you have Lamar and Gus Edwards on the goal line to try to run that ball. And like, dude, just go down at the half-yard line is where you would have been, dude.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, the Chiefs have scored literally 0 points the entire half, so you're not feeling too concerned there. And it's like, I'm
extremely well.
Yeah, because he could dive, like if you wanted to do the dive, but just like keep the ball tucked.
Right.
Because then it's like if you make it, you make it. If not, you get maybe another half a yard or something out of it.
Right.
But you're gonna be on the 1 yard line more than likely. You know, and it's like, I'm sure a lot of it was trying to make up for that,
Yeah, and like again, that's where that rookie part came in. I think he was trying to make up for it. I think he felt bad. I mean, it was clear, like some of those shots of him on the sideline.
Yeah,
you can just see that expression on his face about how upset he was with himself.
I know. And it's like, hey man, getting them on the goal line is making up for it pretty good.
Right.
It's a pretty good makeup. Like, don't worry
it would
about
have been
it.
anyways.
Yeah. Because it does stink because like you also think, like, oh well, if he didn't do the penalty, they wouldn't have been back 15 yards. I mean, they wouldn't have had to do that Zay Flowers play where he dove. It's like, so no matter what, his mistake like came back to haunt the situation there. And that was
I thought that too after he fumbled. I was like, man, if you didn't have that 15-yard penalty, you would have been long in the end zone by now.
Yeah. I mean, and we talked about their kind of desperation a little bit too, because I mean, we were kind of texting about like things where it's just like it's like there were times where it looked like the Ravens defense was trying to like hurt people. And it's like hard hitting's fine, like it's not being against it, but it's just like there were just like some times where you're like, calm down. It's like, again, like they're down. It's like they were down so much. Like you're not being embarrassed. You're not being, it's like you're getting the stops. Like just don't. You don't have to. And like, and that kind of goes back with that Zay Flowers thing. It's just like, whoa, like you're doing this like. I don't even know what, but it's just
undisciplined.
Like,
is the word I kept thinking
of.
Like especially like all the penalties as well, the encroachment, some of the defensive stuff, like which is also crazy because the defense was still playing really well. The defense played really well.
Well, because there was that offside that turned into a personal foul at the end of the half. Because it's like, obviously he was meant to go offsides because it was 1st and 5. And this made sense. I thought this was a pretty interesting strategy because it was 1st and 5 because they had the 1 penalty. So then it made sense to like, oh, well, let's just get it back to 1st and 10 because 1st and 5 sucks for us. Right.
Right.
So like, we'll go offsides. And sure, they'll get 5 yards, but now it's a 1st and 10 we have to deal with and not a 1st and 5.
Right.
Maybe we can get the ball back, like who knows what. And but then it's just like, but you just ran into the guy like way too aggressive. Was that Roquan Smith?
I think it was. Yeah, like Roquan in particular looked like he was really trying to hurt people.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like you overdid the assignment. It's like your teacher was like, all right, give me a 10-page report, and you came in with a trilogy. You're like, well, here's my 3 books on the subject. And you're like, no, that's not. We weren't doing that. So like, I can't even grade this really because this is way beyond the scope of what you were supposed to do. And I don't know. It's just like they had a lot of things like that where it's like they were acting like they were getting manhandled, and so they're like, we gotta force this. Like, you don't. It's again the whole.
You have a whole game. You're only down by 10 points. 10 points
at the half. That's it, And run the ball some. I mean, just like
run the freaking ball, man.
I mean,
Good
I
Lord.
don't understand it. That I mean, 16 total rushes with only 8 of them going to running backs. You're like, that's
Right.
I mean, that's just crazy. And it didn't make sense with the way the game was going. It didn't make
Nope.
it just like that one is just that's gonna baffle me because like
Yep.
Lamar's gonna get a good amount of blame. And look, I mean, he didn't play great, so I mean, like
No,
it's not like
he
he
did
doesn't
not play
deserve
well at all.
he doesn't
No.
deserve. It's like I mean, he does deserve some blame because he was not playing well. He was also pressing. There were times he, like we talked about earlier, he could have taken off and he didn't. He was working too hard. But it's just like, look, the guys are covered because the Chiefs are good at this.
Yes, right. Always take what the defense
Yeah,
gives you.
yeah. And
Good
if they're all they're giving you is you're gonna get 7, 8, 9 yard runs, like just do that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
and that's what the Chiefs were doing on the other side of the ball. Like Mahomes had like what was his yards per attempt, like 5 something or 6, but it was like like I was on Twitter scrolling it a little bit, and some people were mocking Mahomes too. I mean, we had our own little mock exchange of him being a game manager.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I mean, but it's working. Like he's picking them apart 6 and 7 yards at a time. Like, why would he try to force something downfield when his receivers have been dropping the ball all season, anyways? Also, Kelsey's over the middle, open every single play. It feels like 11 targets, 11 catches.
Yeah.
So like, why would he take these deep shots when he doesn't have to? He's burning a bunch of clock and moving the ball. Done. Take what the defense gives you. And that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
And that's partially why they won.
Yeah.
Along with the Ravens shooting themselves in the foot 8,000 times.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the part that stinks on the Ravens. Like if you're like a Ravens fan, it's like I mean, the offense, because now here's the argument I think you can make if you're a Ravens fan for like, well, they didn't need to run the ball. They just needed to not turn the ball over.
Like
because
turnovers.
They did drive quite a bit in the second half. They had two opportunities for touchdowns that turned into 2 turnovers. So that is a fair argument. I mean, the argument would be, look, the game plan was working. In the second half, we just turned the ball over twice.
Yeah, until we got into Chiefs territory, then we started screwing up.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's like there is some fairness there, I would say, in that argument, but I still think it's like, but you still do this thing really well. And again, it's not like it wasn't working because you barely even gave it a chance. So that's why it's confusing. It would be like they did 8 runs, they had 8 yards or something. You'd be like, okay, maybe like, God, this isn't going to work. But even still, like 8 runs to running back is not enough to really know.
No.
And it's just like sometimes it's good to be persistent. And so it made me think like, was this your game plan all along? Was to do this? Like I don't know.
It felt like it was. It really did. It felt like no matter what the score was going to be, that was going to be their plan.
And I guess that makes some sense if they're thinking, okay, they're going to stack the box against the run. They're going to sell out to stop it. So we think we're going to get some good looks throwing it. But once that wasn't really working.
Once that became very not true very quickly.
Yeah.
When the Chiefs were just covering everybody all day, then, hey, maybe adjust your game plan.
The
game.
Yeah. I don't know. So that. And I mean, we should talk about it on the Chiefs side, though. We've been doing a lot on the Ravens here.
Yeah.
I mean, those first 2 drives,
those were methodical. I actually thought it was going to be a blowout at that point.
But the Chiefs have done this a lot the entire year. Their second half scoring is terrible in general. And it's been multiple.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, and this makes sense because I've been thinking about this too. It's like, why would that be? Because Mahomes is such a good improviser, he's good off script, things like that. But this makes sense when you have the lack of weapons,
Yeah.
Here, when you have the lack of weapons,
and I think that's why they shored up that defense too, so much. And
so
and
it's like so you get these scripted plays, right? And everybody always talks about scripted plays, and obviously Andy Reid is great at those. So it's like, when they got them scripted, they've got everything working. All of the receivers, the inexperienced and not great receivers, it doesn't matter as much because they know what the plan is, right?
Right.
And of course, most of it was really just going to Kelsey and Rice and Pacheco, which is how it should work because those are your 3 good players.
Right.
there. But then when they get out of the script and these receivers have to start like
just maneuvering around, just trying to get open, like
doing stuff,
schoolyard football.
yeah, and adjust to what the defense is now doing off
Right.
of it. It's like they're not great at adjusting
Mm-hmm.
to it because they're just not that good overall. So
Right,
I think that kind of is
And
what
Rasheed
happens.
Rice is a rookie, right?
Yeah, and he's a rookie.
So,
So
like,
yeah. So obviously he's gotten better over the year and he's really good and he'll probably be a really good receiver overall. But yeah, but you can't always, it's just like things will happen because
right.
he's a rookie.
Yeah, it's like they're playing a style now of like, let's try to build like a decent lead and then just not lose.
Yeah.
For right now.
Yeah, and that is kind of it. It's just like, yeah, look, we have a good defense.
Yeah.
You build
Best defense Mahomes has ever had.
Yeah. So we get our scripted plays in. We know we can probably make those work. If we get those to work, we get a lead and we can hold on to a lead, and then we're just not going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
and
that's what they've done. Like even against like all three playoff games,
Yeah.
they have made very, very minimal mistakes.
And that's what Mahomes is doing. Now, obviously, if the Ravens had caught up or taken the lead, sure, you probably would have seen things open up a little bit more. They would have tried, but they weren't. Because that's the thing too. It's like, yes, the Chiefs didn't score in the second half, but for most of that half, they had a 2-score lead.
Right.
So,
and it was like there were definitely times where it was like they're not even like trying to really, obviously they're trying to move the ball downfield, but they weren't like trying. It was just like, cool, we'll pick up a couple first downs, burn 4 or 5 minutes of clock, punt it away. Good deal.
Yeah, and it's like you're just hoping. I mean, yeah, obviously you're hoping to get more points, but you're not gonna when you have the 2-score lead, you're just not gonna put things at risk. We can also get into that with the Lions that game. But that was it was just like why put it at risk if we need to go out and do that? Let's do it. Let's not necessarily like play crazy conservative, but we're just not gonna when we're throwing the ball. Yes, you're just taking what's there, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't work, the defense has been doing a good job. We've got a 2-score lead, so even if we mess up, we still have a lead, and now maybe we try and like if they score,
like I think you could also take some solace in that, like, hey, and their offense is not playing well at all. Like Lamar's off, they're not running the ball. They have made themselves one-dimensional.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let's do it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and wow, MVS getting some good redemption in these playoffs.
I did. Yeah, that was a hell of a catch. That's
huge.
For sure.
Yeah, that was. I mean, the ice the game with that catch at the end. That was pretty.
And that was like the one deep shot they took downfield all game, and like what a time to make that call.
Man, I know. Woo! It was like,
and I mean, he had 2 steps on the Ravens corner. I don't know who he burned, but I was like, man, he was wide open. They were not looking for that. That's for sure.
Because what was it, like 3rd and 2 or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it was like a big moment, and it was just like it made so much sense to go for it like that. I mean, it's just like, but you were always wondering, like, but will they? Because can they trust that their guy's gonna catch it?
Yeah, exactly.
And he did. I mean, it was a great play. That was one of my favorites of the day because just the gutsiness of it too was pretty great. And I don't know, yeah, that was a fun little thing there. So.
Yep.
And that was them again showing like we have this like in our bag if we need it. We're not always certain it's gonna work, right? Because our receivers may drop it, but we've got it. They know how to do it. It's just like we're not gonna do a bunch of it if we don't have to.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, I think that kind of. Did you have anything else about the game?
No, I was gonna say I think that pretty much wraps it up and. Hopefully, stupid Chiefs back in the freaking Super Bowl
again.
Mean,
that's insane too. I mean, I mean, you do kind of, if you're an AFC team, you just gotta kind of throw up your hands.
Yeah, you're like, what do we have to do?
Yeah. Maybe not the Bengals. The Bengals might be the only ones who are like, we can do it. They may have the confidence.
Bengals are there in Cincinnati going, hey, do you want to watch our film?
Yeah.
You want to watch that?
Our guy was down. That's not fair. Yeah. But I'm not saying they would have beaten them this year. It's just like at least they can be like, but we did. We beat them.
Yeah.
We got.
And
We
even in last year's AFC Championship game, it looked like they had them at one point too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Bengals are just a bad matchup for them.
Yeah.
But anyways,
yeah, that's
moving
just,
on
that
to
AFC.
cardiac arrest game, as I like to call it now.
What a crazy game.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I was mad right off the bat, pretty much. Because,
Well, 4
like,
plays.
Oh,
I was like, it was 13 minutes and 18 seconds left in the game, and I was just kind of staring at my screen like,
Yeah.
did that just happen?
Yeah.
Really? You just let him march right down the field, 42-yard reverse touchdown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. It's the Packers game
Yeah,
again.
in 4 plays. Yeah, they went down in
4
4 plays off the opening. And, and I thought about that too. I was almost like, man, maybe it's like I kind of felt like we should have taken the ball.
I did too. I did not like the deferring, because you let you deferred to the Packers last week. Oh no, the Packers won the toss. I take that back.
But they
But
decided
for me,
to
it was just
keep
like, the opposing team, this super underdog team, got the ball first last week. We came out of the gates a little bit slow last week. Maybe we should take the ball first and maybe our defense will relax a little bit if we can go right down and score here.
Yeah.
Even if it is just a field goal, which of course Jake Moody predictably missed the first field goal.
Is it the first one? What is it? Like the first one?
I don't know.
And then he seems fine. It's like
he was.
Yeah.
It's like he has to get it out of his system. Like, okay, guys, got my miss. I'm good.
It's always just like a little bit
Little
off.
bit.
It's just like a tiny bit.
Although that one was just a little bit off, but I knew that was pretty much no good when it was like halfway there. I was like, oh, that's gonna hook to the right.
Yeah,
that's not gonna make it.
Yeah, I was pretty worried about it when I watched it go. But yeah, that's a weird thing. He just this first field goals. I don't know,
because like his second field goal was from even further away, and he freaking drills it down the middle. I was like,
yeah. Well, that's why they picked him. They picked him up because he can do that. It's just like I mean, he's a rookie. It's probably just a little mental.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I will say. It's like I think it is a little mental, but it's pretty great that it is mental, but it's not it doesn't become a breakdown.
Right. Because he that was a 48-yarder that he missed the first one, and then he
48.
drills that 52-yarder later in the game.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was even further away. How did you drill? I mean, I don't care. Great. Yeah. That's another 3 points. So cool. We're in the lead now.
Yeah.
But still, what the hell, man?
Yep. But yeah, so I did wonder if we should have. Yeah, if we should have taken the ball.
Yeah, and I think in the Super Bowl, if they win the toss, I think I would take the ball first. No way I want to give Mahomes the ball first.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, and people, it's like the interesting thing with this sort of first half is like some people, I've been listening to stuff and like people are like, oh, Purdy was bad in the first half, which is technically true, but also it's like you didn't really have a lot going on because the Lions just
defense was on the field most of the first.
so like that already messes up the rhythm and messes up, it's just like so
messes
many
everything
things.
up.
It's like you mess up once and then it's just like, okay, well that drive's now gone and they're gonna go down and score again because that's what they're doing. And I mean, like I was almost like, is Steve Wilkes even gonna have a job by the time the third quarter starts?
Yeah.
Because I was so mad at him.
I was too.
Because it's just like those long third down plays where it's like he's just playing the easy prevent defense stuff.
It was. Oh my God, that was driving me nuts because I was like, it was back-to-back 3rd and 18 and then 3rd and 12.
Yeah.
Like, how do you allow a 3rd and 12 on a simple handoff?
Yeah.
Like, good Lord.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? But like, when I watched the replays, I was just like, these guys are playing like 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. Of course, he's gonna. And Jahmyr Gibbs is not exactly slow.
And guess what we know, which also proved to be true in this game, is Goff. Obviously, he's not a big mover.
Nope.
You blitz the guy, they're gonna throw it.
Right.
Like you might even get a mistake, like an interception or a fumble in like a 3rd and 12, 3rd and 18. but like give them some pressure a little. I mean, obviously have a
Right.
couple, have your safeties up and things like that because
Yeah, and
of how long it is.
I was saying that all week too. I mean, I think we talked about it, but I was, talking to other 49ers fans. I work with weirdly 3 49ers fans.
Oh.
But I was saying all week, like, everybody makes fun of Jared Goff, but like if you give that dude time, he's gonna pick you
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah, he's a
Especially
good
with that kind
thrower.
of offense.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna pick you apart. Like, we've got to get some pressure on him.
Yeah.
And early in the game, they were just simply 4-man rush, dropping everybody into
Yeah.
coverage. And what was he doing? Picking us apart to
Yeah.
no end.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also they weren't even like they weren't stacking the box enough, I don't think,
No,
for
they
those
weren't.
running plays at
Even when they
first.
were playing for the run, no, they were still like only putting like 6 guys in the box.
And it's just like you got to feel pretty good about, if you can get Ward on St. Brown, and you're already good defending the middle of the field, which, makes it harder on Laporta. So I'm like, it's
Right.
not like you feel like you need every guy available to for coverage. Because
Right,
it's
right.
just like, they've got 2 really good, I mean, they're obviously really good receivers in Laporta
Right.
and St. Brown, but you got to feel at least pretty decent if you can have Charvarius Ward on St. Brown. And it's true.
Right.
St. Brown had a few really
He had a
good
few nice
plays,
plays, but he was quiet for large portions of the game.
Yeah. So it's just like, it just didn't make sense, the game plan on defense, especially once, those after the first 2 scores.
2 drives, yeah.
Because it's
It
like,
was just
maybe, okay, you had a plan, you thought it would work,
it's not.
Yeah. And this is why because when you brought up the Harbaugh thing about him, like, like calling more run plays, and obviously, he doesn't call plays, but he can dictate that kind of stuff.
Right.
Right. And it's like, why didn't he try and dictate that to Monken? Like, hey, like, let's just get some yards. Let's get some, let's make things easier on Lamar a little bit here.
Right, right.
Because obviously things are off. But Shanahan did say, he told everybody during the half, he's like, we got to be more aggressive everywhere.
Everywhere.
Offense, defense, special teams, we're going to have to be more aggressive. And like that was him dictating also to Wilks.
Like, you've got to dial up the pressure.
Yeah. It's like, because there were a couple times on the sideline in that first half where he just looked pissed in the way I think Shanahan looks pissed.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't necessarily completely know, because I think he looks more exasperated when he's pissed.
He did. There's this, like, they panned to a shot after, I think it was after the 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 8. It was one of those third down plays. They just panned to him, and he's just like looking out, and you see him mouth like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, yeah. And there was like 1-2 I noticed where they did I think it might have been like a 3rd and 10 or something like that, but they did a screen pass that went for first down. And it was like one of those ones where I was like, I could see it. Like I was like, oh, this is like a screen pass situation. And then we were just not prepared for it at all. And I now, of course, I maybe I was projecting, but I felt like I could tell what he was saying. And it was something like, we gotta be ready for that, or we gotta see that, something like that. Just like, how, basically, like, how did we not know that was happening?
Right.
And my kind of feeling, it's tough because I still don't feel great about Wilks after
Neither do I. Even though, like, he adjusted, he dialed up the pressure, which, like, obviously worked, because both 2 of those 3rd down plays where they ended up punting, and then that 4th down play they missed, all of those were bad passes.
Yeah.
Caused by Goff being under pressure and just having to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Which, like, it was great because we were winning by that point, but I was still frustrated. Like, where was this earlier in the game? Like,
yeah. And then, but there's also a good.
But yeah, I'm still worried. Especially with that, like, you were giving Goff time all day and he was picking you apart. You can't do that with Mahomes, man.
Well,
like, you just can't.
Well, I've got a thought on that, but but the other thing I want to say before I get to that, though, is like kind of what I ended up feeling.
Oh, yeah.
What I kind of ended up feeling was less that Wilks was suddenly doing so much better, and more that the defense of the Niners has so many good players that they were just pissed.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We're gonna be bebetter. We're just gonna make this work."
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Like, I felt that way as well. Now that you mention it, like, yeah, because there was one of those Nick Bosa sacks on Goff. I thought about Roquan Smith earlier in the day. I was like, whoa, calm down, Bosa. Like, I know you're mad, but he like body slammed Goff to the ground. And I was like, whoa, calm down there. Like, that's great.
But he also didn't do the big celebrations or anything.
He did not.
Though, so.
Which I think is a testament to what you just said. Like, he was pissed off about the way they were playing, and I was just worried about an unnecessary roughness penalty. The way he threw him down.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, calm down.
But
calm
it's
down.
like it was, but he didn't actually use his body to bite. I mean, he literally just got him by the shoulders, and it was just like, you know, like because it's like it becomes worse when you start using your weight. And you like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I also remember feeling like thinking when I watched that play in real time, like, oh, Bosa's big man.
Yeah,
the way they're playing.
Yeah. I mean, he was working hard that game.
Yeah, he was really good in the second half.
Yeah, he was really.
He's back to Nick Bosa there in the second half.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and so like that's kind of what I'm feeling. That's kind of what I felt. I'm like, it feels like these players like we're better than this.
Yeah,
we're not going down like this.
Did you see? I think it was on a Ringer recap, but Eric Armstead after the game, a reporter came up to him, and even though like this is after they won, you know, they came back and all that, and his first line to the reporter was, "We got to get back to playing like ourselves."
Yeah,
like, even though they came back, they won. They played well in the second half. He was still really upset about their effort in the first half, and especially I think it was combined with that in the Packers game. Like, we got to get back if we're gonna win this thing. We got to get back to playing like ourselves.
Yeah, and
so that's good though. That like to me that made me feel good. And like these guys, even though they won and they're on a high, they're going to the Super Bowl. They're still very aware that they are not playing very well.
Yeah, and so we got to get I think to some of the Purdy stuff.
Oh God, yes, please.
Because here's the thing:
haters were awfully quiet on Twitter on Sunday night.
Well, yeah, because in the second half he was 13 of 16.
Yeah, his QBR. I'm not a big QBR dude, but out of 100, his rating was a 99.1. So
oh, in the second half.
Yeah, in the second half.
I still think it ended up at like an 89 or 88 or. I think so.
Oh, it's actually
maybe it was 79. Overall? Maybe it was like 70. I don't remember what his QBR ended up, but I mean, so yeah, there's quite a few things that we could easily talk about with this, but like, I mean, one, that's 2 weeks in a row now that the Niners have done things that they have not been able to do.
Right.
So like this is
largely, and they haven't been able to do it before, largely because they had a very limited quarterback.
Yeah, and so like that, and that's what I was gonna say. Like that's probably my biggest argument I would have against people who, if they still want to be like, oh, he's not the guy, like he's just propped up by the system. I'm like, well, guess what the biggest difference is with these teams that have gone, you know, what was it before? Losing by 5+ was like 0-30.
Right.
They were like 0-19 when trailing by this much at a half or something like that, you know, which it makes sense. I mean, you trail 17 at the half. It's
really difficult to come back.
Everybody's going to have a losing record, you know, like I feel pretty confident in that there's not a coach who has a winning record trailing by 17 at the half. But to have 0 wins, you know, is you know, stinks. You know, it's like, and now both of those things, you know,
are now gone.
Yeah. And of course nobody'd even done that ever in a playoff game, or was it just championship game? But I think it was playoff game.
No, it was 17. It was the second largest in the championship game because the Bengals and Colts were both down by 18 at one point during their championship games.
Yeah, but this was at half is where it was different, where it was like the first one.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
No, actually, no, the 49ers were the second team to do it after they themselves did it in 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they were down by 17 to the Falcons at half.
That's right.
I thought that was really funny. I was like,
that's right.
Wow, 2 teams have done this, and it's the same team.
Yeah. And so there's that. I mean, that's one thing to keep in mind. Like, wow, what a terrible record when being behind by 17. It's like, yeah, well, people don't generally have good records when they're trailing by 17. especially when half the game's gone. But it's like, but it's like the biggest difference because you've got, I mean, if you want to do like the Jimmy G, all that stuff, it's like there's a lot of the same players that Jimmy G had,
a lot.
right? You know,
I mean, McCaffrey, obviously he didn't. Jimmy did have McCaffrey
he had for a
last
little
year.
bit.
He played better,
Yeah.
but
it's not like the run game still wasn't really good.
It's largely the same roster. Like,
yeah.
Like Debo's still there, Juszczyk is still there, Ayuk is there, Kittle's there.
Yeah.
Like all these guys are still there that Jimmy G had, and it was like so. For me, like those biggest things of like this is why we love Purdy, like watching him scramble, and then he made some of those throws were ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like both of those throws to Juszczyk.
I know.
Good Lord. Especially the tap, the toe tap on the side.
That 9-yarder where he escaped.
Yeah, like
he like ducks under the guy.
Yeah, like Jimmy's not scrambling and then finding Juszczyk. Jimmy's just going straight down.
Yeah.
Like Purdy circles out of it somehow, runs around, and then just throws that little floater / dart to Juszczyk for the first down, and you're just like, you think this guy is a game manager? Like, look at what he's doing this drive. And then, of course, that same drive, that was that first 21-yard scramble that he got. That same drive.
I mean, he ran for over, well, technically he ended up being at like 48 or 49 yards because of the kneel downs, but he ran for over 50 yards.
Yeah, I think it was like 54 before the kneel down.
I think they said he ran for 6 first downs.
Was it that many?
Somebody said that. I haven't checked it. I remember 3 big ones.
Yeah, I remember 3 specific. I think it was just those 3.
That's what I thought too, but okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so but they were so huge. They were such big runs, and they it's just like keeping things going. And it's the stuff that's the difference. I mean, it's such a big difference here, you know, and it's just like he's doing. Yeah, Shanahan's never had somebody who could do that.
Right.
And it's like, and
that's always held his system back.
Yeah, because he's never had somebody who could do things off script. Right.
Yep.
And it's like that. And so it's not necessarily just scrambling, but like, yeah, the Juszczyk there was a great one. Like, obviously the play broke down.
Right.
So like the whole play's out at that point.
Right.
So he gets out and then he starts looking down the field and figure out where can I go. You know?
And even like the Ayuk touchdown, that one was even a little bit off script. He had to scramble around a little bit on that one.
Yeah.
And then Ayuk just kind of backpedaled into the back of the end zone and he found it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I need to talk about, because I'm getting frustrated that people aren't talking about the one crazy Ayuk. I mean, they're talking about the catch, but I mean, they're not there's a couple of things on it that I feel like need to be addressed in this situation, because people like, there are the pretty like, well, that should have been a pick. One, that was not an easy pick. The guy was like laying out,
falling backwards,
not even on the ground. So like, should have is like, well, that was a tough play. All right, so that's one of the things that's not being talked about. Like, oh, that should have been a pick. It was in his hand. I was like, it wasn't in his hands. It was falling
hit him
down.
in the face.
Yeah. So, you know, he had his hands up, obviously, because he was trying to
right.
But the reason why they threw that flag, and now they end up picking it up, because I think they understood what ended up happening, is he didn't actually overthrow Ayuk. What happened is one, they saw the single coverage, and this is what's also getting me that's annoying, is how often do we praise quarterbacks for throwing it up and giving their guy a chance? It's like, yeah, that's your best receiver, single coverage, you expect your guy, if he's your best, he's your best guy, and as far as like just a pure receiver, Ayuk's definitely the best of the pure receivers.
Yes,
to go up and get it. And like, so one, that's what he was doing, and that's what he said, and that's what Shanahan was completely like, yeah, he did exactly, just the corner just played it well, and the reason why he played it well, because they were running up, and when they threw the flag, Ayuk bumped into him. So, and I don't think people are talking about this, he bumped into him, that's why he lost the step or two. And now that's why they threw the flag, but I think they picked up because they realized the defender was still playing the ball. So it was Ayuk just ran into him. It's not like the guy was impeding him. The guy was also going for the ball. So I think that's why they picked up the flag at that juncture. So I'm like, so if he doesn't bump into the defender, he's there for the ball. So that wasn't an overthrow. The throw was fine. It was single coverage. It's what they wanted. It's what they were looking for. It's just the corner stayed on top of Ayuk. That was just good coverage. I mean,
Right.
and they were trying to take an advantage of a corner who's been taken advantage of. And I mean, of course, they technically still ended up doing that,
Yeah,
but
they
like,
did.
so it's like there's all these things where people would be like, oh, what, that was his own bad throw. That was his like one bad throw of the. It's like it wasn't even a bad throw. The throw was
No, it
right.
wasn't.
He did
No.
all the stuff he was supposed to do. The corner just played it well, and then Ayuk just made an insane catch, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah,
I thought it was defensive pass interference, honestly. I thought that's what they threw the flag for.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
No, that's what. Sorry, I'm saying they picked it up. I think the reason why they ended up not calling it, I think they were going to call it on the defender, but then they realized, yes, Ayuk did bump into him, but the guy was also running, looking for the ball.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it wasn't really like he wasn't. It's not like his eyes were on Ayuk when they bumped into each other.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
I
think
see.
it was just like,
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's just
the
like
guy
an
didn't know
incidental
Ayuk was
contact
going to
kind of
run
thing.
into him, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, it's just that he happened to stay on top. So yeah. So that's what I think. I think they were going to call defensive pass interference, and then they realized, no, the guy was looking for the ball, so he didn't even see Ayuk running into him, you know. So like obviously wasn't trying to stop him.
All that was a moot point anyways, because he caught it.
Of course.
So
But I just hated that the narrative was like, oh, this was a bad throw and a bad
no,
decision.
oh my god,
you know?
no, it wasn't. That was a great throw.
Yeah.
Like these, I just don't understand. Like you'll find the stupidest, dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Crucify this dude for God's sake.
It's like if Mahomes had done that, you'd go, yep, they don't have the receivers they need. You
Yeah.
know? It's like
Mahomes threw a great, and even I don't ever want to hear Greg Olsen commentate 49ers games ever again. But like both of those throws to Juszczyk, he was just like, oh, you know, that was a solid play by Purdy right there, but what a great play by Juszczyk. And I was like, man, if you flip that and that was Mahomes or Josh Allen doing that or Lamar, like you would be losing your goddamn mind right now about how great they are off script, how great they are at making plays happen for the offense.
Yeah.
But because like we've talked about before, because they're so determined and not to think this dude is bad, they'll just go, oh, well, solid play, but wow, what a great catch by an all-pro fullback.
Yeah.
At that point, I just wanted to be like, shut the fuck up, Greg Olsen. Good God.
It's so and this is the other thing, and is that and people are starting to talk about it now a little bit more, where it's like people are forgetting like this was his first full year starting, right?
Yeah. Like the dude is a second-year player. For God's
so
sake.
you know that some of the complaints you have, there's a good chance they get better.
Yeah,
you know.
Also that
it's like there's just like stuff, and I've heard him talk about it too, like working on footwork and release so that the ball can have more zip when you need it, or you can get a little more distance on the deep ball. You know, like just the technique. You know, getting.
And I think what'll happen, what'll be better too as he gets better is like those scramble plays where he took off. I think he'll start doing that more once he realizes like, hey, if my guy's covered and I've got 15 yards in front of me, like I need to just take that ball.
Yeah.
And run with it.
And which can be great for the offense, because then if people start defending that, now you've probably got a guy who can come open.
Right.
You know.
Fred Warner mentioned that like he said they were talking about it and he told Purdy himself, like, dude, run the ball sometimes, man. When you've got the lane, take it.
Yeah.
Run.
Just do what you need to do. And there was something else I was going to say there, and I forgot now. But it's just, that's what I was going to say. This is one of my things that I don't think people remember this happening, I feel like. So, and I hate doing when everybody wants to do QB comparison stuff. So this is not a comparison of saying that Purdy is anybody. It's just this has happened to good quarterbacks before. So
right.
After Brady won the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
They had some struggles the next year.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to start wearing a glove on his hand. And I remember this because there was an interview. There was like one of those like NBC like Sunday night football interviews, that they do there. And it was like, people were suggesting he should wear a glove. And I think he tried wearing a glove for a game or two or something like that. And he was just like, I mean, I won a Super Bowl without wearing a glove, you know? So, and the only reason why I'm saying that is just like, Yeah, because he was still really young, and he had some learning points that he still had to do as a
Right.
quarterback. And it's
Right.
like, and this is just kind of going with the rain stuff a little bit. It's just like, oh, it looks like he can't throw in the rain. It's like, or it looks like he needs to learn a little bit about what he should do in the rain. Now,
Right.
now, and
Right.
most quarterbacks are not as good in severe weather.
Right. And that
Uh,
like that stuff drove me crazy even during the Packers game. And what also drove me crazy after the fact was that game-winning drive he led, the rain was coming down that
yeah,
drive.
yeah.
And it like he kind of figured out on that last drive, like, this is what I need to do when it's raining outside. And nobody gave him credit for that either. And I hated that too.
Yeah.
Like,
So
can you
it
start giving
yeah.
this dude credit somewhere?
Yeah. So again, that's not going like, oh, he's Tom Brady and stuff. It's just like, look, we've seen
Oh
quarterbacks who
yeah.
have succeeded, who are young, that we don't quite believe that they're supposed to be as good as they seem. So we look for flaws. And at the time, Brady's hands were also something that were
Yep,
looked
they
at
were.
as a flaw,
Yep.
And so that's that. So there was that part.
His hands and his arm strength where I
Yeah.
remember that. Like, yeah, he won one Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
like, is he still going to be a franchise type player
Yeah.
with that lack of arm strength?
Yeah, and arm strength can grow. I mean, that's the thing too.
Again,
You
yeah,
can get more. Now some people just have like crazy arms, but it's like, but Brady became better over.
over time,
So
yeah,
yeah. So again, so that's just like leave also room for growth. So like that's
yeah,
the other thing to
yeah,
keep in mind here is like
yeah,
there's growth that could still happen here, and I would
right,
expect to happen. Now maybe it won't, but I personally would expect it to happen because it looks like Purdy's focused enough to go, what techniques can I do? What else can I do to get better at things?
right. And like
Um,
you said, like you mentioned, like he's constantly talking about that
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and even staying behind and studying and like, what can I do
yeah,
better?
yeah. So
Um, especially when the play breaks down and things like that. So, uh, yeah,
yeah,
crazy stuff, crazy stuff.
and then the Lions here,
Yeah, I was gonna say let's jump over to what the Lions blah,
rough, rough.
rough. Yeah.
So
Uh
there's a few.
I get it with so I didn't know I wasn't aware that the Lions kicker was that bad.
Yeah.
Um like I guess when he starts getting to 45 yards and longer, he's 48%, something like that.
Oh, I
Uh
thought there was because Sal, um, cousin Sal shared like a thing where it's like one of the field goals from what he made was like he was making it like 78% of the time. Now he has struggled, so I'm not but there was like I can't remember which one it was. Um
yeah, maybe it was 50 yards or longer.
yeah, I think it was
He
because
just
I
cannot hit those.
yeah. Now like yeah, you still want your kicker to be a little bit better than 78%.
Right.
So there is that is one thing to definitely take into factor with some of these decisions
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the kicking
I mean,
situation.
but also like I mean, Dan Campbell's been doing that all season, going for it on fourth down, feeling like they have legitimate shots. Like it wasn't um it wasn't anything that the Lions hadn't been doing all season. What I did find really weird was at the end of the first half when he took the field goal.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird. I thought for sure, and the way they were still driving the ball, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna score another touchdown right
Yeah,
before.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I was still like peak angry at that point, but there was a little part of me that when he settled for the field goal, I went, is that the right
Yeah.
move? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the 49ers might be like, oh, cool. All right. Like, we're only
Yeah.
down by 17. Like, it's 3 scores, but at least it's not 3 touchdowns now.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about that there, but cuz I did write so I wrote down I wrote down the thing of like a thought cuz I was kind of trying to take some notes for the game so I could remember some stuff for both games.
Yeah, yeah.
And um I was like, is it sacrificing your identity to be smart? Um
I don't think so.
and this is what I mean is that there's a whole thing of that it's really I have more of a problem with not attempting the field goal on the first one than well, I don't know. I kind of felt a little bit of a problem on both, honestly. But I mean, I kind of still get it because I get what people are saying. So like, I don't have like a problem in the sense like I'd be mad about it. It's just the first one now again because the kicker being bad, so there's no other. You don't have the guarantee. Not that it's ever a guarantee. So that's
Right,
the thing.
right.
Like if the one thing that people need to keep in mind is if he goes for the field goal, the kicker misses it. People go, "Wow, Dan, he sacrificed his identity, and look what happened." Like they
Right.
should have They should have done what they always do. Why get conservative? So that
Right.
was also on the table here of
Yep.
getting roasted for not doing what you normally do here. But there's some of the arguments that I would say that make sense to attempt the field goals are you're up at 17, they come down, they score a field goal, which you feel pretty good about that, you only
Right.
led the field goal. But you respond back, if you get a field goal back, it's like, cool, man, we can do this all day.
Yeah, we'll field goal
We'll
battle
just
you to
trade
death.
it off and like whatever.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get close enough here because this is we've built up such a lead, like, and we're gonna maintain that
Right.
lead, so it's
Mhm.
like, so maybe the Niners feel like not great that they only got a field goal, but it's like, okay, but we got a thing, we got something. So like if you go down and you get another field goal, it's like, well, that just erased what we just did. Great.
Right,
Like it feels a little more defeating. Not that I don't think it would have been necessarily yet for the Niners because I think they were still pretty pissed off. But
Yeah.
but it just creates something. But of course,
But yeah, and it still makes it that much harder for them to come back.
yeah,
Because like you just said, like you regain that 17-point lead. So like, and the way because the Lions moved the ball pretty well on that drive that they ended up turning it over.
yeah.
Just on that last play, which what happened on that 4th down play gave Goff a little bit of pressure, and then he just threw a bad pass.
Oh, yeah.
That first one to Josh Reynolds, and some people were like, "Well, I don't know, he should have caught that."
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
it was sort of in his hands, and I
People
was
keep
like, "Yeah, but
saying that.
that's the whole point of the pressure, though. Is like it made Goff throw it like half a second sooner than he wanted to, which means Reynolds had to stretch out. Like, yeah, it hit him in the hands, but he still had to stretch out.
His
He was
body,
uncomfortable.
his body was
His
in a
body
weird
was
position.
off, and that's the point.
Yeah, and the
of doing
defender was
something.
there providing extra pressure too on
exactly.
on the receiver.
On
So
Reynolds, yeah.
it's like, yes, you wanted to make that play, but at the same time, your option was Josh Reynolds. Like that's not. I mean, not that he hasn't done some really good stuff, but it's not like that's your.
It's not Laporta or Amon-Ra.
Right. So like that's like there. So that in some ways was just some good defense too. It's like, okay, well, if this is the guy that you have to rely on to try and bail you out, like we're good. Like,
Right,
like,
yeah,
okay,
right.
we feel okay with that. That means we probably did what we needed to do, and our guys just need to stop you now.
Yeah.
And I mean, they don't talk about it. I think somebody did, but not most people have not. They talked about there was pressure with that. So the throw wasn't great. The guy had to spread out a little bit more. Yeah, and then the second 4th down was just like Goff was trying to run, and I mean the ball was like 6 feet away from Brown.
And way behind him, and Brown also, it looked like he cut inside the hash marks because the ball was like 6 feet behind him. Like, I don't think Goff expected him to cut in like that.
Who knows? Yeah.
But again, like going back to that's what putting pressure on the dude does.
Yeah.
Like it makes the offense do things they don't want to do.
So I do understand like that's what they do, but it was just a little bit like, but, man, you could gone up, and then I don't know, it's just tough to go like you could tie the game though. It's just like, and somebody else said this, and
on the other 4th down one,
and it's just like you have a chance to tie the game, and I can't remember who said this, but it made a lot of sense. Was like, and then if you tie the game, it's like clean, almost clean slate.
It's a clean slate. Yeah,
you got it.
Right.
Okay, like game start over.
Right. Like you're up by 17, but we tied it now.
Yeah.
And let's try to go back to what we were doing.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's the thing. Like Goff threw 40 times.
40 times. Even when the Niners started coming back a little bit, like that was more of the decision making that the Lions were doing. They stopped running the ball really for the most part.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I mean, this is great. Like, make Goff throw the ball.
Yeah.
But also, like, you're stopping the clock when you don't need to, like on all those incomplete passes. And like the Niners already have momentum and all that.
Yeah. And it's the same thing like with the Ravens thing, where it's just like, but this is what you do really well. So like that's the real like loss of identity that suddenly happened, but you had it the first half, so I don't understand.
Right. And I mean, the Niners' run defense did tighten up a decent bit in
Sure,
the
of
second
course,
half.
and of course they were,
Absolutely,
but
but
that doesn't mean you stop.
stop. Right,
You
right. Like,
know,
still keep them honest. Like, and it became that way in the end. Like the Lions just like forced them unforced errored themselves into being one dimensional
yeah,
by just like having Goff throw 40 times, and a lot of that was in the second half when the Niners were still coming back. Like, why are you throwing the ball?
yeah, a lot
And then of
more than
course,
needed,
and then Jameer Gibbs fumbles
of course.
I mean, after they fumbled, and I thought to myself, like, man, if they go down and score here, like, that was one of those, like, I was obviously excited, but I went, oh no, Lions, oh no.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That perspective too, where you're just like, and I mean, it does suck because it's hard when you have that kind of a lead. People don't
Yeah,
generally come back from that at the half,
no,
especially not in the playoffs. It's pretty rare. And it's just like you're feeling so good because, I mean, they just outplayed. I mean, they were just outplaying the 49ers.
oh,
Um,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it wasn't even a close game.
yeah. And it's just like to lose like that. And that's another one where it's just like, I don't know. Yeah. If you just ran the Baltimore, so like not even counting those fourth down plays, it's like, man, if you just ran the ball a little bit more, you
Yep,
could have
yep,
it could have just been too much, like just time
yep.
wise.
Yep.
If
Yeah, right. Because even if they like, even let's say you kick a couple field goals and they still score a couple touchdowns, like you're still up at that point because you're up by 17.
Yeah.
And if you kick two field goals and they score two touchdowns,
yeah,
well, you're still up by 9
yeah,
at that point.
yeah,
And now you've probably wasted so much more time if you're running the
yeah,
ball and getting field goals. Like you could be up by 9, so 2 scores with like 5 minutes left
yeah,
in the fourth quarter. That's really hard for any team to come back from,
yeah.
no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people have been talking about it too, and it's one of the biggest of the because Dan Campbell's done a great job, so this isn't like a
Yeah, I don't think there's any
but
denying
there
that.
were mistakes, yeah, and like that the I mean now who knows if the game would have changed because there's a decent chance it still wouldn't have. But doing that one run play with 1 minute left in the game, a little over a minute
Oh
left,
my God, yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
yeah, and it's just like then you ended up having to use your timeout, one of your timeouts. So like you had to have all three of those.
You needed them, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
even if you scored and you don't get the onside kick, you need all three
yeah,
timeouts. Because then well, what we saw happen, if you only have two timeouts, then the 49ers can now just down you to
yeah,
death, and the game's over
yeah. Because
for the
basically,
most part.
yeah, exactly. So it's like you want to have as many chances as possible, right? So
Right, right.
so it's like so if you keep all your timeouts, you've got hopefully two, right? So you've got onside kick. We'll see what happens. We probably won't get it because we usually don't. That's just how that works.
Yeah,
Um,
I think onside kick percentage is like
yeah,
4%
it's
now.
insane. Yeah. And
Or
then so you're like, okay, so that's probably gonna happen. But if we can just stop them, we at
right.
least we'll use all of our timeouts. We won't have a lot of time, but you never know.
Yeah,
We at
right,
least
right.
get another chance.
Right, like
Uh,
because they're obviously just going to hand the ball off to make you use those
yeah,
timeouts. Like,
yeah,
what if I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but like, what if you get lucky? What if McCaffrey? What if you hit him in the right spot and he fumbles?
yeah. And that probably wouldn't have happened, but just stopping it would have been fine.
Right, right,
Stop,
right.
punt, see what happens, and then you just got a chance. So, maybe you take advantage. I mean, when they've done prevent defenses earlier in the game, you're able to take advantage of it. So who
Yep.
knows? But I mean, it's not a guarantee. But it's just like, but you took away a whole chance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and everything came down to this one. And it's just like, so that was a huge, huge
I didn't
blunder.
understand that either.
And it's like
I was
now's
just
when you want to run it.
yeah.
This
Now
time,
that too is like
this
that's
is
when you choose to run it. Like
yeah,
you
this
just
is the
like
time.
you just got down the field throwing the ball. They tightened up on the run, and that I wow, just wow.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah. So that was kind of crazy. So here's this is another thing. So I had a tiny rant that the analytics have been coming up for all of the fourth down decisions and like
Yeah,
what's better, what's not, and stuff. And I'm only getting tired of I believe in analytics. I shall say I'm going to tell people because it's just math. So like,
Yeah, right.
I think it's stupid if you don't believe in it, because you're basically just not believing in a thing that we all know exists.
Right.
Now, what really people are having struggle with is how analytics are used. And this is an important point that I feel like kind of gets lost in the analytics department, is that, and it's actually one of my favorite lines from The West Wing. So, so they have a pollster come in on the West Wing, and they're trying to poll on. I can't remember what they're doing a poll on, but they're trying to do a poll to see if they can start a new policy shift, right? And so they're doing polls to see how people would feel about it, and the polls don't come back great. Like the numbers aren't great and stuff. And so like the pollster is talking to the deputy chief of staff, and so she's like, so they're giving the numbers, and he's like, oh, well, this tells us we can't do the policy that we need to. And she's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't tell you that. And he's like, no, it does. He's like, these numbers say we can't do it. He's like, I know, numbers don't lie. And she's like, they lie all the time. Yeah, and it was like, and her argument was like, what this poll is showing you is not that people don't support it, it's that people don't know about it. And it was just like, people, you need to ramp up your rhetoric so that people can learn and hear about this thing, and then the numbers will probably change, And so and I just meant it from like a numbers lie point, is like analytics, you have to be careful. And the only thing, and this is a part of the rant that where I get frustrated, is the same analytics, the super analytics people will tell you all the time about how stats lie. And stats, you can't always trust the stats. It's like, how did this happen? This situation, where did these things come from? Because the numbers in some ways can lie. If a quarterback gets most of their yards when their team is down 2 scores, that starts to tell you, well, maybe the quarterback's actually not as good as it seems. It's just that now he's throwing the ball a bunch because their team is constantly down, possibly because of their quarterback,
Right.
So like, don't, the garbage time yardage quarterbacks, like
and
that.
When the defense starts playing a little bit soft.
Yeah, and they're giving up stuff because they're like, sure, yeah, you want to keep doing these 9-yard throws, like whatever, we're just not going to let you do anything big and we can win the game. So it's like, so they can understand they lie there. Why can't you understand that sometimes on a 4th down play, just because the numbers say to go, the situation doesn't always mean you should.
Right.
Now,
that was go ahead, finish.
And so that's kind of was my thought with some of the Dan Campbell stuff. It's like, yes, I get it was kind of a coin flip situation. Now taking in the account of the kicker, that's different. So that's why I'm less upset about it, because I'm like, right, because you don't have the same kicker as some
you don't
other
have
people
Justin
have.
Tucker on your side.
You don't even need Justin Tucker, you just need, it's like, maybe he wasn't solid enough, you were concerned about it. So like that's also taking into account the situation beyond the analytics, or maybe even if the analytics were a little bit like, don't go, he might have gone for it anyway, because like, I just don't know if my kicker's gonna make it. So so on Dan Campbell's side, it's not actually an attack on him, it's just an attack on when analytics people just go, basically they're saying, what I hear from most of the analytics people is like, well, the analytics said go, so they should go. And it's like, that's not just because it says that. I mean, situation matters so much. How have you been running the ball? How have you been throwing the ball at this point?
Right.
Like, what, are you at home or are you away? Like, how many points are you up? How many points are you down? Like, all of these things like matter, and analytics tries to take into account some situation, like the amount that you're ahead, how much time's on the clock, like it can do that, but
that's what I was about to say, like how much time is on the clock.
But it can't, it cannot take into account how those guys have specifically been performing that day. It cannot take into account momentum. Momentum is a thing because momentum is something that exists in our brains. It's brains, and just energy. Momentum is an energy, and energy exists. So like, to me anyway, like the momentum is an energy thing, and it's a feeling, and that matters a lot in competitive sports and I mean, in general it matters, but like in competitive environments, energy is a huge thing because energy is do you feel the confidence like shit we can do this
Yeah,
or not?
right,
And you don't
right.
want to give the other team confidence, and when you miss on a big play, you might still be up by 2 touchdowns, but they might go, shit, they just messed up.
Yep.
We
I mean,
can
that
do
was
this. We go down and
yeah.
score. We're just 1 touchdown away.
That's how I felt like after that first fourth down they missed. Like there was that monumental shift, and then they scored, and then
Yeah.
obviously when the fumble happened, that's where
Yeah.
like where you were just saying with the momentum stuff,
Yeah.
like momentum within a game is absolutely a thing
Yeah.
because like if you did not feel like this collective burst of energy from the Niners, and like you could even see it on the Lions players' faces after Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled, it was just like they were they were losing confidence real fast,
Yeah.
and they could like see everything breaking down real fast. That's where going for it on that second fourth down made less sense to me because it was
Mm.
like, hey, the 49ers are up now.
Yeah.
So if you give them the ball back,
Yeah.
they could go down and seal this game,
Yeah.
which they essentially did. So, like, really, you probably should take the field goal
Yeah.
at that point because even if you miss it, like, you're still, if you miss the fourth down or the field goal, well, you're still on the same spot. You give the ball back to the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
but give your chance to tie a game and have a tie
yeah,
game.
exactly. And like
You
and
know.
like you said, like the offense was not playing very well up to that point in the second half. The Niners defense was suddenly awake and flying all over the place.
Exactly. So right. So
Like
yeah. So
it didn't feel good or even right to go for that fourth down.
yeah.
If I'm the Lions, like,
Yeah.
I'm going. I need to settle this game down
Yeah.
because if we miss this like you with the home crowd, this place is going to explode,
Mm-hmm.
and then the offense is going to go, cool. We only have like 40 or 60 yards to go to steal the
Yeah.
game. That's not
Yeah.
very far, especially the way their defense is on the
Yeah.
heels. Our offense is on fire. We
Yeah,
can do this.
and this is and actually I'm glad you're saying that because I think that this just makes me think of another argument on the field goal side of this because yes, one thing that people could say is, oh, but if you miss the field goal, that's also big and that also stinks. It's like, yes, but what you did is you gave yourself a chance to tie the game. If you
Right.
make the fourth down, guess what? You may still have to try and go for a field goal later. You just
Right.
you just converted. You still have to try and go and score. This
Right.
is we could possibly score right this second.
Right now. Right.
And tie up the game. Either way, if we miss the field goal or we miss the fourth down, the ball's being turned over. So that's what I thought about when you were saying that. So either way, if we miss either one, ball's turned over. But the other one, the upside is tie game. The other one upside is first down. Maybe we can still go and try and tie the game. Like, there's still
Right.
no guarantees that you're going to
Right.
go down and score a
Right.
touchdown.
Like
You may
he
have to
could
settle
throw
for a field
interception or
goal.
like something. All sorts
Yeah.
of bad things could happen.
Yeah, yeah. So you may still have
Uh,
to settle for a field goal, which means that now it's tie game with less time, and they're getting the ball, right?
Right. This
Um,
offense who is
or
now burning our
yeah,
defense gets
yeah.
the ball
Or
back.
who knows? Or you're opening up. I mean, obviously turnovers are always possible, like things
Right.
like that. Sure, maybe now. Of course, the biggest upside is the touchdown. You regain the lead. But you still have to drive and still do that. It's just like the upside in the situation is first down. Hopefully, we can still drive down and score a touchdown. Or the other one is upside tie game right now.
Yeah.
And the
because they
downside
still
was the
were-
same.
If Brown had caught that ball, that was still only at like the 28-yard line
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Like,
There's
still
no
a decent
guarantee
way
there.
to go.
So there's no guarantee. So I'm glad that's actually really good that you're bringing that up because that makes it's like that it's like, and again that's a thing that's not necessarily, well, that's a little bit factored in analytics, is like the point differential of what you're getting off of one or the other. But
Yeah.
like it's just like, but understanding the moment, how much time there is, tying up the game goes, it gets you, because you hadn't scored at all in the half. Zero
right.
points. You have zero
Yeah.
points at this juncture, right? So it's just like getting some points sometimes. I mean, like they talk about that sometimes, like at the end of the half, like your team's doing terrible, but you drive down, you get 3 points at the end of the half, and how big that can be. Even if
Yeah.
your team's way down, it's just like, okay, but we drove a little bit, we got some points, like let's just build off of that.
Off of
And
that,
it's like
right.
you didn't allow for any building, and you finally get a touchdown with, I don't know how much time was left when they got that
Like a
touchdown.
minute.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right,
Because
that's
the
right, that's
Niners
right.
ended up
Yeah, it was
getting the
less
ball
than a
back
minute. I
after
think
the
it's
onside kick. I think there was like 56 seconds left.
yeah. So, oh yeah, because I think they called the timeout at like a minute left or something like that.
Yeah, and then they scored the touchdown. Yeah.
So it's just like,
Which it's funny too when you bring up time and stuff too, is that like uh even if the Lions had recovered the onside kick, it wouldn't have counted because the Lions player touched it before 10
I
yards.
know. Yeah,
Right.
either way, that play was doomed there. So
Yeah.
that's why you wanted those 3 timeouts.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought about that too. Like that's why you need those timeouts, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why you need those timeouts.
Yeah. So I mean,
But poor
I mean,
Lions fans.
yeah, poor Lions. I mean, people can say what they want with Shanahan and stuff, but he's now 8-3 in the postseason.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
I mean, he's just been limited by his quarterback for the most part.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even last year in the championship game, like Purdy got hurt on the second drive of the game. He didn't have his quarterback.
Yeah.
And then the year before that, he had a busted up Jimmy G.
Yeah, so this I broke down like Purdy was first half 7 of 15, 93 yards, the interception.
That was a bad interception too.
-1.
I don't know where he was going with that ball.
Well, no, he got hit. It got hit and
Oh, did
slightly
he?
tipped. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
he didn't have follow through, and the guy slightly tipped it. Now it was still going to be a tough throw
Yeah.
into Debo there. So I mean, I'm still not 100% certain it was the right decision. But yeah, that's what happened there is so the ball ended up kind of sailing a little bit because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I'm still not sure it was I mean, there's a few Lions players around there, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah.
best,
Right. That's
best
where I
decision
felt like.
overall anyway, but who knows what the throw was going to look like. And then maybe there was something you didn't quite see at the time. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, but yeah, so he's like, so 7 of 15, 93, and then second half was 13 of 16, 174 yards, and then 49 rushing yards.
Right.
I mean,
right.
technically more than that because he had the kneel downs, but
Yeah.
so it's just like, I mean, you can get on him for the first half. I mean, obviously 50, not quite 50% completion percentage is not great, but it was also just like that. The first half was really a tale of just what the Lions were doing and the 49ers defense not doing more than the offense, I feel like. But
Yep.
yeah, that's it was kind of crazy, I mean, yeah, it does suck for the Lions fans because they were right there. And it's like,
you had it. Like it was just like the Packers game all over again. Like you had it. Like what the dude I follow on YouTube, Tom Grossi, he was like, it was the same as that Packers game where it was like we weren't really expecting to win, but then we had them.
Yeah,
we freaking had them, and we just let them back in.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes it such a gut punch.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's one of those things. It's like the Niners were the better team, right? So
overall, yes.
Well, I think they were a better team in general. Like I just think if they played 10 times out, like at this specific Niners team versus this Lions team, because who knows, next year could be completely different. But like, is I think they were better, and I think they played so poorly. I mean, obviously they played really poorly in the first half, and it's not that the Lions aren't good. That's not going like, oh, the Lions aren't a good team. It's just like roster wise, I just think Niners are a better team. And you were just able to outdo them in the first half, but then the second half, it was just like it started to come through of just like, oh, they locked down on the run better. They started pressuring Goff. It's like the better players started to actually play like the better players, like the players that they are. So like you were saying with the Armstead quote, it's just like they started to play like themselves, and then that's what happened. Now, obviously, you wish they could have done some of that earlier to make it less of that. So I think overall the Niners just had a better team, but they're still going against a really good team, which is why they could have lost the game as well.
Yeah, right. I mean, and you could even argue that they should have lost the game.
Yeah, sure, definitely. When you're down 17, usually you're supposed to lose. Really.
Yeah, right.
That's what any stats will show you, definitely. Which makes sense because that's not easy to come back from that.
No,
and
no.
The resiliency though of the Niners to do that twice in a row. Now it's a little concerning, and we'll talk about Super Bowl next week. But
yes,
we'll do that. A little concerning because it's like, are you going to be able to do that against the Chiefs' defense? much different.
But yeah, let's not
Much
spoil that
different.
too much.
No. Yeah, but anyway, folks, yeah, do you have anything else you wanted to say for the game or anything?
No, that's it. Going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean,
Woo!
going back, rematch
Hopefully,
with the Chiefs.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, not that it's a rematch of quarterbacks.
No, well, I already have a lot of notes that I'm taking on
Yeah.
that about how this game is fascinating. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited to get to that. But
Yeah.
like you said earlier, we're still way too far out.
Yeah, coach versus coach, though, back going
Yep.
against each other. And yeah, so it's going to be, I mean, some people
Should
are
be
pretty
fun.
upset about it, I think, because obviously it made sense for people to be rooting for the Lions. I'm not going to.
Oh yeah, I had
people
two
that,
friends text me Sunday afternoon. They both said you do know nobody's rooting for the Niners except Niners fans, right? I was like, I'm fully aware.
Of course
that.
they
Thank
are.
you.
Yeah, if I wasn't a Niners fan,
Exactly, that's
I'd
exactly
be
what I
rooting
told
for
them.
the Lions because, like, what
Yeah,
a great
exactly.
story, amazing for the franchise. Like, they totally deserve a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, yeah,
Right.
of course that's what I didn't overall care between Ravens Chiefs, maybe just from Chiefs fatigue, sure. And also just because like it would have been fun for Lamar, I think, but you know, but it's not like the Ravens haven't had a bunch of success either, so it's not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people were just rooting for Baltimore because they didn't want to see the Chiefs in there.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
But yeah, so we'll be back next week to kind of break down the Super Bowl and talk about what we see in the game, what we think might be maybe some interesting matchups, maybe some fun storylines, and plus we'll kind of have a better idea of like what kind of storylines have kind of started taking over. By that point.
Now one big blow. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but the Chiefs lost one of their best defensive linemen. He tore his ACL.
I did not see that.
So that's going to be interesting. I think he was one of their gap guys on the running game.
Yeah.
And their run game's not great in the first place. But again, we'll talk about all that. But I saw that yesterday and went, "Ooh, that's not good."
Yeah, I did not see that. That is not good. So I did not see that. So we'll break all that down. So please keep listening, share us around, and we will
take me back,
see you next week.
Take me back into another time, another time.